before diving into it, let's frame the situation. What does agile transformation look like from a C-level perspective? What kind of problems are we trying to solve on C and C-1 level that lead us to the conclusion we need to go agile with the organization? Let me sketch it out. Your customers typically use more than one product. The use cases they have span products. Like if you're in the banking industry, you have an app on the iPhone, you have a web page, you have a machine someplace, a teller machine where you get stuff. Use cases go across all of those products. A lot of the time, the customer doesn't really care which product he's working with because he's just trying to accomplish a task. So we are growing and growing into that area. Secondly, in many of your companies, probably you did buy other companies. Has anyone been in a company where you bought something else in the last year? Something? It happens rather frequently. My last company had bought 72 businesses over the course of 20 years. That was a huge chaos, right? So 250 products, that's quite a circus. So if you're a C-level, you look at the company, you look at the use case of the customer, and it's like, how can I put this together? How can I make sure that the customer is properly being served across all of those things? And in the pre-agile world, we end up doing Excel sheets with dependencies and long lists of stuff. I've just worked with a customer that has 1,500 portfolio epics in progress at the same time. Now try to manage work in progress with 1,500 tickets. It just doesn't work, right? So that's the scenario. Customers rely on multiple of your products, on use cases across anything in your universe. How do we get this done? Well, the first thing C-levels come up with is, well, there's something like convergence I learned about in business school. We need to merge all of those products. And then you end up maybe having a CTO that talks about platform convergence, right? Let's put everything onto a platform. Let's bring it together. And because of the business structure and the many, many products that need to be put together, putting it together seems like a good idea, right? Why do we have 5 products that do this and 10 products that do this? We kind of need to bring this together. And many companies do this. I call it the platform challenge. And you see that in all businesses, right? Atlassian, we're a platform business, right? If we're worried to list all of our Atlassian products, it's going to take us 5 minutes to come up with all of them, right? Yes, we have Jira and we have Confluence and we have Jira Align, and it goes on. Compass and Atlas and Jira Product Discovery and Work Management and ITSM solutions and analytics. I mean, you go places. How do we bring this together? We want to create added value for the customer. We need to make sure that everything works coherently. Maybe a fun example from my personal life about something that didn't work as coherently as it should have. I love my glasses. I'm very particular about picking glasses. I don't know if you've ever bought glasses. It can be quite a difficult decision, can it? No, it's easy for you. It's difficult for me. It really is. I don't know. I mean, no hair, nothing else. The glass is really the only thing that can differentiate me from a bunch of other hairless guys, sorry. So I picked those glasses. Those are actually shades. So I found an online store that sells those shades, and I was just like, you put prescriptions in them, I can buy the shades from you. I'm just going to combine those 2 products and I'm going to get my glasses, right? Makes perfect sense. Yeah, so I thought. So I ordered the glasses, and like a week later, the package came, and I got the shades. I got an empty box. And I was like, where's the box empty? And so I waited, and my credit card had been charged already. And so I called the support, and support said, well, our internal system is going to send you your glasses that you want with prescription and the shades together in one package because we're more eco-friendly. It's been programmed that way. So you have to send us the glasses you want with prescription. I'm like, I'm going to buy them from you. They're already at your warehouse. And that didn't work. So I purchased the glasses again. My credit card got charged again. Then I got the glasses on a separate order, sent it back in and got everything else. It was like a big nightmare. And I'm just like, why do I have to know about your internal order processing system and how it works? I really don't care. And it's that kind of use case that we find everywhere. My wife just ordered something in an online shop, and it allows you to select the shipment company. if she selected UPS because one of the other companies that she could have selected never reaches our house. I don't know why. They give it to the neighbor down the street, or when they don't deliver it at all, and then you have to drive to the next village to get it. It's a nightmare. A day later, she gets an email, "We've cancelled your order." And she said, "What?" She calls the support. "Well, the delivery method you selected is not available for the product you bought, so we cancelled your order. You can reorder if you want it." And they're like, "This is 21st century online shopping. What's going on?" So those are some examples of different systems that just don't work together, right? The coherent use case for the customer is, I want those glasses with prescriptions, or I want this item shipped with UPS. And it just doesn't work because there's an online shop, there's an order intake system, there's a workshop system, there's a shipment system, whatever. And probably behind the scenes, gazillion different teams working on all of that. This is what we need to solve. This is what product convergence does for us. So the first thing that product convergence really allows us to do is to bring functionality together and allow more functionality for other customers. That's something I did at my last company. When you look at 250 products, there's like 47 products doing this and 50 products doing this and whatever. But they're all doing it slightly differently. So if you bring that together, you actually have better functionality for the customer. That's what we did first. Synergies. Anybody working in regulated industries? Perfect. So isn't it fun how much you get to do to stay in business? Typically, customers spend between 30 and 50% of their development resources keeping their product in tune with the regulatory requirements. I don't know if you can make it with less in your industries, but we were hardly able to do that. And then if you have multiple products, it's like, why do you do that at the same time? It doesn't make sense, right? So if we only do this once and then the regulatory stuff affects all of our products, if they're on a platform, it's much easier. That's the synergies we want, so people can do more innovation. By the way, that's a myth buster. People are just like, if you combine the product, I can let go of the developers. No, you can't. Because they have the knowledge, because people are hard to find, because you want them to do actually the real thing they were hired to do, and not look at some governmental papers and do what they tell them to do, which doesn't make sense in the first place anyway, right? And finally, the future is platform and modular. That's what we need to do. So doing product convergence actually helps us. So this is a long way to give your C-level a pitch to say, hey, dude, actually all of your employees need to be able to work together on all parts of your platform all the time. That's what you actually need. You need to scale agile to the extent that everybody can work with everybody in the company. Is that possible? Can I see by show of hands? If I were to go into your companies and say, I'm going to pick 2 random teams, will they be able to work together? Okay, see a couple of hands going up, not sure. Yeah, why not? Well, we speak different languages, right? Every team has their own board, they have their own workflows, they have their own way of managing requirements. Sometimes it's all over the place. So if you bring products together, you get what we call complexity, which is a nice way of saying, I need to hire another 1 billion project managers to make sure that I can control the risk, which is what executives used to do, which is not what we want them to do, right? The journey is really epic. Because the point is, most of you here work in organizations where you cannot manage product management and development centrally anymore. We're beyond it. It's not going to work. It's too complex. It just does not make sense. I mean, who wants to run through a list of a couple of 100 dependencies or a couple of 100 risks to make sure that everything is in time? It doesn't make sense. It's not possible. When I work with Atlassian customers, and I think a few of them are actually here today, when executives come and they're like, we need to see the risks associated with this and that and whatever, I'm like, sure, can absolutely see that. And we go to one of our Atlassian products, Jira Line, and we just give them the full list of the risks. And then they end up with 500, 600 entries, and I'm like, there you have transparency. Tell me what you're going to do with it. Oh, and by the way, those are updated on a live basis, so every time you go into the system, you will find a new risk or a new update on it. And then they come with the idea of, hey, how about you give me a change log? What changed? And then I can find out if it's red, green, or yellow, or good, or bad, or... No, you need to give it to the people. The people that know about the dependency should be the ones best equipped to solve it. Right? So, when you work with your executives, sometimes we have a good situation, and they're just like, oh, we can go agile, we can do this, it's all fine. But as soon as the problem comes, we're reverting back to old ways of working. We're on status reports and lists and everything. And a lot of the times, me, myself included, we did do something wrong in talking to executives about agile transformations. We said something like, this is not agile. You're not supposed to ask this. Or this is not the right question. Or this is what you don't do when you go agile. Have you done that? How do they usually react? I'm in charge. I want to know, right? Yeah, they have, however, a couple of legitimate questions they get to ask, right? And the point is, we need to get, and that is where the guide for C-levels comes in. We now get the strategic decision they have to make. We get the scenario they're working in. They do have legitimate interest in a couple of questions. And one of them is, they need to know when we deliver what. And in an agile spirit, transparency is fine, perfectly. They can know that, absolutely, no problem. They have another question. Is our utilization good? Which is actually the question, what are we doing? Right? And there are better ways to answer this question, so there are agile alternatives to it. By the way, utilization, I'm probably going to be 2 minutes over, but I'm going to tell the story. It's not on the slide deck. Is anybody a pilot here? Anybody flown an aircraft? Perfect. If you fly a jet aircraft, how long can you have the engines on full speed? Not long, right. I sat as a passenger in an airline cockpit a couple of times. One of my friends is a pilot on an airline that I shall not disclose because he'll get fired if you know. In an Airbus, if you go full throttle, there's actually a timer starting the second you hit 100%, and it's 2 minutes and 35 seconds on the A320. And it counts down, and you have exactly those 2 minutes and 30 to run on 100%. Why not more? It's an engine. I want full utilization. I can get to places faster if I run at 100%. Well, it's not good to run the engine at 100% all the time because it's going to die on you rather quickly. It's going to overheat. It's not built for that. In production, we understand this. For knowledge workers in the human brain, we kind of lack a little bit on the understanding that running at 100% is not going to work on a human brain, right? When you look at coding, after the 6th hour of straight coding, quality drops dramatically. And there's nothing we can do about it. It's just the way our brains work, for example. So utilization, let's be very careful with that. I'm putting that in parentheses here. There are better ways to understand if the organization is working into the right direction with the right amount of resource allocation on the right types of projects. Thirdly, of course, we want to identify problems. I was once in business school, and there was one course by a dude that was really interesting, and he called the course The Permanent Crisis. And he basically said, it seems like we have lost the art of leading and are only managing crisis anymore. And unless we have permanent crisis, we fail to change. I don't know if you know that from your companies. Change happens most rapidly when something is under fire. Yeah, so we need to identify problems. C-levels are looking at that. Where's the problem? How can we solve it? And yes, there are agile answers for that question as well. And finally, how can we ensure that we're working on the right priorities? How can we actually do that? And typically, we have Excel files and stuff. Sorry, you wanted to take a screenshot? Well, I'm going to allow you to do just that. There you go. Sorry. Well, those are legitimate questions on the C-level side. There are appropriate answers for it that we can provide in agile working methods overall. There's no problem to it. There are tools that support that. I'm going to speak a little bit about that because I want to get away from Excel files and status meetings and PowerPoints and updates and all those kinds of things, which at the end of the day is something artificial, right? I don't know if you have that in your organizations, but typically there is a layer of business development, business managers, project managers, experts, staff, I don't know how you want to call them in your organization, that translate between what development says where they are into a slide that is C-level ready, or how would you call that? C-level worthy or management digestible. I don't know how you want to call that. Yeah. Do we need that? Is that the real thing? And I'm saying no, there are agile alternatives. We can actually do something. And besides the funding and budgeting process that all of us have to go through, probably on an annual basis, typically starting in September, October, the fight for the budget starts. That is one lever that a C-level has to make sure that the organization goes into the direction which they want them to go by simply controlling expenditures. And that's fine. That's okay. We do fund the organization. That's all good. On top of that, there's a little bit more you can do as a C-level to make sure the organization runs into the right way and you interact with an agile organization in the right way. And the first one is to work with a strategic goal system. Strategic goals. There's probably a business school course that tells you how to write a strategic goal system that is so open that you can change it into anything down the box. I don't know if it's been there, but it's those nice posters on the walls that everybody gets in their organization that's like, we are supervising this, or we are doing this, or we are work championing this, or whatever. I was once in a meeting where a project had been running for 8 years about the delivery to market. And certainly that I committed 8 years is insane amount of time to put into any product without getting any customer feedback. That's not go there. And in this year, 8 years after it, the CEO says, hey guys, you know that you're supposed to be tablet first, right? And I was just like, you started the project 8 years ago. That was 3 iPads. How did you know it? Because I'd really like to learn. It's impossible, right? Strategic goal systems need to be executed. They need connection to the execution to really influence the organization. And strategic goal systems need to be more than mere declarations of what it looks like in a marketing process. And people remember it. The second thing I want to talk about is OKRs. And now it's kind of a really hot topic. Everybody talks about it. Managing by objectives is great and whatever. It complements strategic goal systems. I'm from Hamburg. I like boats. So I'm going to make a boat comparison. Strategic goals define the direction you want the ship to run. OKRs are the descriptions of the outcomes you want to achieve, right? Let's say you want to take your boat to the Caribbean. It could be a strategic goal, like super. Yeah. The OKRs would explain the objective. We want to go there for leisure purposes. We want to have fun along the way. Well, how do you manage fun? Probably by the weather conditions and the amount of shaking and moving that goes on in the boat. And probably you count that also by the number of people hanging their heads over the railing trying to turn. There'd be some good key results to measure. And it's a different quality, and it complements a strategic goal system. And finally, and lastly, we're talking about themes or strategic themes, which helps us to understand how do you want to spend our resources. Like, how many people of my crew should be doing air versus keeping ship on course versus cleaning up after the guests or something. Now I'm going to translate it into the development world in just a second. All right. When I talk about all those systems and levers and everything, I have this image in my head about how a company should be set up, what the setup inside the company should be. And I'm just going to run you through the elements. You will find some of them in your organization, most likely. You may call them by different names, but they will probably serve a similar purpose. I'm talking about a mission as the reason why we exist. Why do we really want to do things? I'm talking about a vision, like the place and future we want to build, where we want to be. I'm talking about values, about how to get there. What's allowed and not allowed on the way to get to our destination. And then it gets a bit more tricky. Then this is supported and connected to a strategic goal system, which is typically multi-layered. Then I'm talking about strategic themes that give us the personnel dimension of how to spend the resources. Then we're talking about objectives and key results. How do we measure success along the way? And then finally, a work item structure on multiple levels. That is kind of the general idea of what I think we need. And that's kind of the general picture of what Jira Align supports in like working agile in large organizations. A little bit of information to it. Keep your phones handy. There are 2 more clicks before I change the slide. On the left side, I have suggested some levels. Now, this is totally up to you how you want to do this, how you want to define this. It really depends on the flavor of agile that you have in your organization. And then kind of an idea of the timeline of what we do. How long into the future are we going on that level? I think that gives us a good impression of where we are. Now, if we look at this whole system with everything that's on it, I do see mission, vision, and value as something that C-level should be engaged with, definitely. And I would encourage all C-levels to really make this distinction between mission, vision, and values. And we often don't do that. And I think that's a mistake. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say you're a medical software company. Your mission can be to synchronize healthcare. And the vision for it would be no patient should ever suffer or die because of missing healthcare information. I think that's a good vision, right? And you see the distinction between those 2 elements. By the way, just on a side note, since I'm from the industry, in the European Union, about 500,000 people die each year because of wrong medication, because they're allergic to something, and by the time you notice they're allergic, it's already too late. That is a lot of people to die in a year, right? And it doesn't have to be that way, actually. So that's a good mission for a company and a good vision where you want to be. Values, team-centric, blah. You hear those kinds of things all the time. But let's be a little bit more specific. And I challenge all the executives to actually use something that makes sense. Like, what are our real values there? Atlassian, of course, has its set of values that we all know about, that are standing, that help us build stuff. And part of it is, for example, build with heart and balance. And that influences all we do. So if you look at our products, we always do what's right for the product in the long run. We don't want to take shortcuts. It's just not what we do. And that reflects on everything that we do with our products. So values should really be something that the organization understands how to live by and how to make daily decisions and kind of say, yeah, this is based on our values. By the way, I've never heard references to companies' values so often since working at Atlassian. Everybody's talking about it. And I like it, and it's good, and it helps us influence. Let's talk about strategic goals. I did bring an example from the banking industry. Anybody from the banking industry here? Perfect. Companies, if I may ask? Volksbank. Oh, nice. In the Netherlands. Perfect. Perfect. Great. Great to have you here. Strategic goals in the banking area. Strategic goals are supposed to give you direction while allowing space for innovation. And that is an art and a science in seeking them out. They are not supposed to be this, in 2022, we'll be market leader in this segment and have acquired all of those companies. That's not a strategic goal. They're a little different. And I'm going to show you some examples in just a sec. As a reminder on strategic goals, they have the purpose to connect your top-level mission, vision, and values to the actual execution. I have literally seen no company that has made this layer the way it's supposed to be. We always have this, what I call strategic disconnect between where we need to be and how we get there. And that does not make sense. It needs to be connected. And it needs to be connected in a way that we're not doing top-down decision on everything and everybody is boxed in and they perform exactly inside their box what they need to do. We need to do this in a way that enables and unleashes, for lack of a better word, the potential in the teams that actually work there. And secondly, they're supposed to give us direction for an extended period of time. They need to help, if you're a C-level, strategic goals need to help your organization understand the direction in which you're supposed to think and go and work and do things. And that is so important because this is a key to increasing intrinsic motivation of knowledge workers. If you give people a purpose, they're highly motivated to work with that. If you give them a task to do, they'll make sure they're completed by 4 o'clock so they can go home. What do you want? Thirdly and finally, it's an aligning element to make sure that we understand how resources are being spent in connection with the overall mission, vision, value, and direction that we're going to. All right, brought an example just to freshen things up a little bit. This is from an imaginary bank. Our mission is to positively impact the communities and customers we serve through the creation, growth, and preservation of wealth with a focus on families. I'm pretty sure that you need a philosopher to come up with that. I don't know. But it's okay. It's a mission. The vision is be the world's preeminent financial services firm for compelling customer experience powered by leading technology and advancements. I think when you go to business school, they teach you that if you have a strategy like this, it always needs to end in world dominion, right? Going to be the world's biggest and the world's fastest. And this is probably going to change over the next 10 years. When we go to Moon and Mars again, it's going to be like, we need to think outside of the box. Now we're doing it on Mars, right? Be Mars's preeminent financial provider. I think that's the goal of the future. We'll see how that goes. All right, values, teamwork, integrity, leadership. Now, what would strategic goals look like for an organization of that size, where you get that connectivity between wishful thinking and actual execution? And that would be something like this. Expand to new and underserved markets, automate everything, capitalize on emerging technology trends, recruit and retain top talent, and maintain and improve our fiscal position. This is a great set of strategic goals. It kind of looks inwards at making the organization better. It kind of looks outwards into expanding the company reach. It kind of looks at making it more efficient because we automate everything. It kind of looks into the future, being innovative, looking into new technologies. It's a really nice mix of things. Perfect example. Now, you need to manage that. You need to connect that. I brought a couple of screenshots actually from Jira Line just to illustrate that. This is what an executive, a C-level, could be looking at regarding strategic goals. You have this perfect pyramid. You have your mission, vision, values, elements, everything in there. You could get your backlog of strategic themes, looking at it. Think about it. A strategic system can be a backlog. Like, this year we're doing this. Next year we want to do this. How should we refine this? This is what you could do in an executive offsite to look at what does our strategic system look like? How can we make it better for the future, for example? And then, of course, yes, there's a little bit of execution connected to it. We can drill down nice tree views and kind of say, what are we actually doing for this? What is actually happening here? This is the interesting part. This is what people really want to know in terms of transparency and how that steering impacts them. All right. OKRs. Anybody using OKRs in their organization? Could I see a couple of hands here? It's actually pretty well spread here. Good experiences with it? Is it working out okay? Well, OKRs help us to understand whether it's better to give solutions, problems, or outcomes to people. How do we best do that? In my experience, anywhere between 8,000 and 10,000 people, you reach the ceiling where it is impossible to manage the organization top-down as you did in the past. I've seen that in many different industries. Somewhere between an 8 and 10 is the magical number where it's just too much. You can't know everything. You can't steer everybody. You can't call everybody. You have to delegate responsibility. And the best way to do that is to start with outcomes and help people understand that. That was actually the shortest question. There was, back when I was in school, it's not that long ago actually, but still, Heinrich von Pierer was the chief executive officer at Siemens. Okay, being German, Siemens is it's a big company in our country, so we're kind of proud of it. Building all those wind parks recently and healthcare stuff and anything, it's cool stuff happening there. Anyway, von Pierer came to one of our lectures, and one of my fellow students asked this question: how do you manage a company like Siemens? Because it's so big and blah. And everybody took out their pencils and was like, wisdom flowing from the prophet's mouth directly. We want to write down how to do this. And he just looked at it and he gave us one word: well, decentrally. And then everybody was silent. It's just like, and he's like, let me spell it out for you. Do you really think I will be able to manage all risk and deliverables across all of our branches and industries? Have you ever looked at our org chart? It's impossible. I have to do it decentrally. Now, in that size of company, it's pretty clear. I've seen many C-levels that struggle with letting go of the control needed to empower people to make decisions in the organization that are far better than the ones they could have made. And that is a really, really difficult game. But OKRs are one way for you to make sure that you still understand, but we do understand where we want to be, right? We do want to understand what success is and how it's measured. Let's agree at least on that one, so I can give you control over many things. So objectives and key results define outcomes that we want to be achieved. It's our agreement on how success is supposed to be measured. And they should be broken down from strategic goals. There should be kind of a connection between it. If you have a specific strategic goal, this is an OKR, how we describe immediate steps to be taken, outcomes to be measured to move forward. Now, in my little example, we have OKRs on many levels, on portfolio, on solution, on program. You may scale it as you want. As an example to illustrate it, a portfolio OKR for the strategic goal of investing into new technologies could be something like, we want to be the market leader in mobile investment and banking. And the key result will be our market share and percentage and monthly active users and number of our customers using our app to interact with us. Do you see how this is flexible, opening up for the organization to achieve things? I'm not telling the organization how to do that. I'm not saying you need to have all of those use cases in it and you need to do this and I'm going to give you this list of whatever to do. No, I'm kind of saying, hey, guys, make sure that we get 75% of our customers to use our app. Now you go and find out what kind of use cases they have. You go and find out what kind of personalities and user personas there are, and you make sure that you build content that helps us achieve that. That'd be the right kind of way to look at portfolio OKR, for example. All right. Of course, one of the new screens in Jira Align that I really like is our OKR Hub. It's a tree structure where I can go in and I can explore from top to bottom all of the OKRs. I can see scores on how the key results are performing. I can see scores on how the work is progressing. I get all the information to the C-level I need to see that our key results are actually working out. This is the perfect screen to use in a quarterly business review meeting. Let's take a look at our outcomes. Let's look at where we are. Let's look at work progress. Let's look at key result progress and check-in. By the way, one of our fellow Atlassians, the solution engineer Derek, he came up with a way to use Atlassian automation to actually automatically upload the key results into Jira Align from other systems. I love that, because then you're not only having the work site in it, but you have the actual measurements inside it. There's like a neat little solution to do that. Also, what I really like is the roadmap by objectives, which is like, let me give you all the objectives and all the work we're actually doing for it. Because as a C-level, you do have a sincere interest in what are we actually building to get this done, right? So for this objective, we're building this. This is the progress on it. This is what we're doing. And that links it to the work items. I think that's a really, really neat thing to do. Right. The third lever to steer an organization as a C-level is strategic themes. managing resources is something that is extremely tricky in every organization. Do we have enough people? Are they doing the right things? How are we spending our time? What is actually happening there? There's always this, how much time do we have? How much goes into a sprint? You know those questions, right? How do we get to that point? And while we do support time tracking and capacity management, and by the way, there's a really cool new capacity feature in Jira Align that helps you kind of look at it from a good way, which is, let's agree on how much time we can effectively spend on things. Let's have a good discussion on it. Strategic themes help the C-level to make sure we're spending the resources in the right way. And that's actually the point. We want to make sure that you really understand that instead of looking at utilization, you'd much rather understand what resources are being used for, instead of if they're being used 40 out of 40 hours a week or 37 out of 37 hours a week, right? And in that sense, strategic themes represent kind of top-level categories of work, like architecture, keeping the lights on, mobile solutions, bug fixing, whatever you want. If we have agile coaches here in the room, this is a fun exercise to run. Take those categories, go to a group of your managers, and ask them how they actually think they're spending the resources just from a percentage point of view. What do you think how much is going into bug fixing? What do you think how much is going into new features and this and that? And make sure that you have a business manager, a product manager, and a development manager in the room, just for fun. Let them go around the table, make sure the dev manager is last in guessing how much we actually spend on what. I've done that on so many occasions, and this is the perfect exercise to explain to C-levels, this is why you need strategic themes, because the organization isn't actually doing what you think it's doing, right? So, fun little story. I was at a company that builds highly complex medical and pharmaceutical web services that check interactions of medications and make recommendations what to give to a patient so it's not going to die on something. So it's kind of high security stuff. And the business manager had just accepted a new goal from the board to the company to which they belong, that they should make more money with certain new technology to be implemented. The product manager was trying to get new customer projects on board, and the dev manager said, I'm spending all my time fixing bugs. And that's kind of how reality typically is, right? So then the second thing you ask them, well, where do you want to be? What should be the right mix? Let's agree on something. What do you want to do? And then you make plans on how to get there. This management of resources, what goes into what, that is the perfect way to look at it. Because you already look at the size of the organization during budgeting, right? Budgeting is the point where you say, how much money can we spend? How many people do we have? What kind of outcome do we want? That's all taken care of. Let's now make sure we use them for the right reasons in the right categories. Right, I did bring an example. Of course, keep the lights on, platform infrastructure, architecture, mobile first, user experience, excellence. Now, these categories may vary. You may have different ones. I would suggest having 5 to 8, maybe 10. If you have more than that, you did something wrong and it's too complex. Right? And what's important with those themes, try to get a good view on where you are today. Try to understand where you should be in the future. Now, strategic themes are the connection to get the long-term executive strategy actually operationalized. Like, if I have 2 or 3 business units as a C-level, and they're all in a comparable market, and I want one of them to fade out and one of them to start, I would give one of them less budget to build new things, and the other one that's supposed to take its place an extremely high budget to build new things, right? So all of those market strategic evaluations feed directly into how I work with strategic teams. And that's how I steer the resources, on top of the funding that I do already, but that kind of complements that. Of course, there are a couple of cool snapshots that I brought from Jira Align. This is the themes with the execution level just as a list. And this is actually my favorite. It gives us 3 pie charts. A intended guardrail. This is how you're supposed to use the resources. A forecast. Given all of the tickets you've put into the system, if you work on your plan, this is how you will use the resources. And then finally, the third one, which is missing because the quarter hasn't started in this case, this is how you actually spend the resources in the end. And with all those variations, you can very quickly steer the organization. Now, one thing to remember, this is never 10% on this, 15% on this, and if you're 15.1, goes off your bonus. That's not how you steer with strategic themes. You have to give people leeway around those percentages because it is a lot of people below and a lot of planning going on. So I typically say plus minus 5% is perfectly fine. If you're in that corridor, I'm really happy with that. All right. Let's put it together then. We talked about the strategic situation that C-levels find themselves in, the problems they're trying to solve, product convergence, platform strategies, the need for the organization to collaborate, come closer together so we can actually do something good for the customers whose use cases span across multiple of our products. We talked about a strategic setup of different strategic elements. Excuse me. Mission, vision, and value, the need for all of that to actually be realistically giving direction to the organization. And then I identified those 3 levers on top of budgeting and finance that you already have as an executive. Strategic goals. I'm really sorry. My voice, it's too much. Strategic goals, strategic themes, and objectives and key results frame in the work items and help us make sure that the work items Sorry, too much partying over the weekend, obviously. No, just kidding. The 3 elements that frame in what we do as an organization are the perfect... Thank you, Adam. Now, this is my boss's boss's boss helping me out here. I just want to notice, you guys, that was Adam Sempri, Head of Advisory Services for Atlassian. Strategic goals, strategic themes, and objectives and key results frame the work items and help us make sure that the organization goes into the right direction, uses resources appropriately, measures the outcomes in a way that relate to the C-level agenda. And those will be the 3 major influencing factors we have to make sure that the organization can actually unleash its potential and we can decentralize all that work and appropriately interact with an agile organization. It kind of answers the question, strategic goals gives us the course, themes, the resources, and objectives and key results, the outcomes that we want to achieve and how we want to measure that. That's a really nice concept. I've shown a couple of slides in between of Jira Align, and everybody's going to ask, yeah, that's nice, but how do we do this in Jira or Confluence or something? We do this with Jira Align. At the end of the day, I have to throw in that slide. As I said initially, we are a platform business too. There are tons of applications that we offer, literally, that connect all of that, from a common data platform that we provide to Agile and DevOps applications, to ITSM and IT Ops applications, work management. We can really support this kind of strategic execution wall-to-wall inside your organization to do that. Because, as I said initially, we need to be able to collaborate together regardless of where we are in the company, regardless of the role that we have, because at the end of the day, the customer really doesn't care. And they need all of that put together. And that's the big goal of that agile transformation. It's not a self-serving element. We're not doing agile transformation because it's hip or somebody says that's the way to do it in the future, which I think it is. But we need to do that because we need to survive as organizations. And that is the pressure that C-levels feel, and they still need to maintain enough control, appropriate control of an organization to facilitate and steer that forward. Thank you very much.